I'm just gonna do a quick walk by. Make sure he's okay.
Andy meets Jonah's new girl, Buffy meets her basketball match, and TJ and Cyrus make amends. Let's break down Season 3, Episode 7 of Andy Mack and find out just what happened. Rise and shine on, you lovely people. Lisa here for your weekly dose of Andy Mack. Now, last episode was a big one as it brought on the issue of gun safety, and we finish off that storyline in this episode. The show also continues in this episode to showcase diversity as deaf actress Millicent Simmonds, who broke out on the big screen recently with A Quiet Place and Wonderstruck, joins the cast in a recurring capacity. Now, I actually really love her addition to the show. If you saw her in Wonderstruck or A Quiet Place, she is just so good, just as an actress, period. And I'm excited to see how her character develops, and I think it's a great dimension to add to this show. But let's go ahead and break down the events of this episode, and then I will give my thoughts on these storylines afterwards. First up, it seems like Pops is still trying to figure out what to do or what his purpose is after coming back from traveling. When Cece sends him to clean out the garage, he ends up making little sculptures out of all the little parts he finds, and while this seems like a cool new hobby, it seems to worry Cece. She's like, this guy needs something to do. Meanwhile, over at Cloud 10, there's a lot of things breaking that need fixing, like the sink and stuff, and so Bowie's like, you know what, I'm a handyman, I can step in and fix it. But Bowie ends up fixing things exactly how you think Bowie would fix something. Yeah, he doesn't use tools, he finds creative ways to fix problems, like using a scrunchie of some sort to fix the sink and, you know, tying things together or duct taping. Yeah, it may not look pretty, but in a way, he is fixing things. Bex ends up seeing how happy it makes Bowie to feel like he is helping out, so she lies to him saying he's doing a good job. But when Cece comes and sees the damage of what Bowie has done, she takes it as an opportunity, and they get Pops to use his little handyman skills to fix up the place. And it seems like it makes Pops really happy, makes Cece really happy, and in the end, it actually does make Bowie and Bex happy as well. What doesn't make them happy, or at least Bex, is those weird, nasty, healthy, so-called smoothie things Bowie keeps trying to give her. Yeah, I'm with Bex there. If you try to tell me something is a smoothie and it has like kale and vegetables in it and no ice cream, I am not calling that a smoothie. Heading over to the gym and Buffy's basketball team, let's just say this team is not making any progress, and Buffy is just getting more frustrated and worried that the team's not going to be good enough to get a coach and become an actual team. She wishes she had just one player who could play the game, which is interesting because isn't she a player and she knows how to play the game? So I'm guessing she just wants one more player, but really, be careful what you wish for, Buffy.
That was fast.
Buffy ends up recruiting this new girl, Kira, who was a star shooting guard at her old school, and well, while she has the basketball skills, she's got a major attitude problem. Like, great player, but super cocky. Now, at first, it seems like Buffy is actually happy to have someone who can play the game on the team, but she finally realizes Kira's not a team player and also immediately regrets describing the team as a hot mess to her.
Whoa! Buffy! You were right. This team is a hot mess.
Buffy then sits Kira down alone and, tries to have a heart-to-heart and tells Kira that she needs an attitude adjustment because this is a team sport and she just needs to, learn how to be patient with all the people and all of this. But you know what? The whole talk does not go over well. Kira calls Buffy a joke, and it's kind of ironic how they're having this whole spat underneath the sign that says, respect one another or respect each other. Well, one seems to be respecting one, the other doesn't, and well, does anybody else smell a showdown of sorts between these two girls on the horizon? Now moving on to Jonah's new girlfriend. A few episodes back when Andy and Jonah had that conversation about how weird it'll be when finally one of them likes someone else and has to introduce that other person to them, it was obvious to Andy that Jonah had already kind of found somebody by his, way he ran off and all of that. And that day came sooner rather than later. This episode, she finally gets to meet that someone else. Andy and Buffy end up seeing Jonah in the distance talking to a girl, and he's brushing her hair out of her face, and they're kind of, touching a little bit, and It seems like Andi is like, well, this must be Jonah's new girlfriend. When Jonah leaves, Andi decides she's gonna take initiative and introduce herself to show Jonah that she is fine with this new girlfriend, even though Buffy and Cyrus are kind of like, maybe you should just calm down and wait until Jonah introduces her to us and we know that that's who this girl is, because it could just be nothing. But you know Andi, right? Andi runs after the girl and doesn't get the result she's expecting.
Hello, friend of Jonah back. Excuse me, I'm just trying to say hi. Hello?
Now, if only Andi had waited just a little while longer, because Jonah does go up to Andi looking excited and saying there's someone he wants her to meet and he thinks they'll get along. And Andi's just kind of like, yeah, I already know, it's your new girlfriend, which throws Jonah off for a split second. But then he's like, you know Jonah, right? He doesn't like labels, so he's not exactly calling this girl Libby his girlfriend just yet. But he does want them to meet, and Andi just starts going off and not letting Jonah get a word in like Andi kind of usually does. I'm sorry, Andi. But she tells him how she tried to introduce herself to Libby, but Libby iced her out, so now she thinks Libby has a problem with Andi. And then Andi has to quickly insert the whole entire foot into her mouth because Jonah informs her that Libby is deaf. Yeah, it's kind of a classic Andi, jumping right to conclusions, and you know what they say about assuming things. If you assume, you end up making an ass out of you and me. And well, at this time, at least it seems like maybe Andi realizes how much she was in the wrong. She doesn't always recognize when she's wrong about other things, but this one she realizes she was 100% kind of like in the wrong.
Let's just say there is nothing more humiliating than being 100% in the wrong.
Later, Jonah brings Libby to meet Andi at the Spoon, and Andi pulls a tiny bit of sign language out of her back pocket, which she learned in elementary school. And this immediately sets the tone. Things get off to a good start. Now, while Jonah says he and Libby communicate via text, it seems like Andi has a knack for being able to understand what Libby is signing, and these two immediately start to bond over their handmade headbands. Nothing says friendship like sharing a common interest, one especially like making headbands out of materials like popcorn buckets. Yeah, not many people do that, so if you find someone else who makes headbands like that or out of weird materials, you hold on to that person, right? Well, these two become fast friends, and Andi steals Libby away to show her the Andi shack, and while poor Jonah's just sitting there like, wait a minute, what just happened? Is it a good thing that these two are running off together? And he makes sure to tell Andi to say good things about him. Now, as the girls hang out in Andi shack, Libby asks about Jonah, and Andi tries to explain, of course, what went on between them and their so-called breakup, not breakup, and their relationship, and she's like, Jonah is such a good guy. And then Andi just says that, she and Jonah really didn't have a lot to talk about. They didn't have much in common. And they agree that Jonah is cute, but kind of boring and maybe one-dimensional because he really only prefers talking over text and using emojis. Ouch, right? Well, at least we finally see Andi kind of acknowledging one of the reasons why her and Jonah were not compatible. Yeah, they had nothing to talk about. We never really saw them in their relationship talk about much. I think they were just attracted to each other because they're both cute, right? But when they broke up, I put it in quotes because they didn't break up, they never really discussed what their actual problems were, I felt like. Anyways, that's rambling on. But so Andi and Libby end up heading off to the park, and Jonah texts them to be like, where are you? Let's meet up. And Andi tells Libby that Jonah's just worried that she's gonna say something to make Libby want to break up with him. And that's when Libby drops a bomb, telling Andi that Andi did say something that makes Libby want to break up with him.
He is a really great guy. Please don't break up with him because of what I said. Don't. You can't.
Libby basically says Jonah's boring. Ugh, yeah, and now Andi starts to freak out and it's like, no, he's a great guy. Your relationship's different. You can't break up with him because of what I said. And then, of course, as timing on a show like this or any movie or whatever it is, Jonah just happens to run up in the middle of this conversation and ask what they're talking about. And it's all kinds of awkward that will, of course, continue as the season moves on. Before I get to my thoughts on that whole situation, let's talk about what happened with this gun safety storyline in TJ and Cyrus. So we left off at the end of last episode with Cyrus in the principal's office being questioned by a cop about the gun. Now we don't exactly get to see what questions were asked or how that played out exactly in that room, as we pick up a little bit later. Now, Cyrus has obviously told Andy, because she was there, and Buffy about the situation, and these girls are both demanding that he stay far away from TJ. TJ keeps trying to text and call Cyrus, but they keep telling him to ignore it. They even tell him to block TJ's number, but you can see that Cyrus feels really bad, and he wants to talk to TJ and kind of get TJ's side of the story. But I actually completely also understand why Buffy and Andy are acting like this. I mean, they haven't been fully convinced of TJ's, switch to the good side, as you can say, and so there's still that hesitation, and they could see why TJ would be a bad influence. So this whole situation is escalated because it is, such a serious thing, and I get why they are being like that and trying to protect their best friend. So I do not fault them for that. I know some people, you might watch this and be like, oh, Andy and Buffy are being so annoying, but you have to get where they're actually coming from and why, because they don't want TJ to get hurt, and they don't know all the facts, neither does Cyrus, so, they don't know if TJ purposely put Cyrus in danger. Anyways, I said I was going to get to my thoughts at the end of the recap, but apparently I'm giving some of them now. So, let's move on. They then see TJ sitting in the cafeteria eating lunch alone. He's no longer sitting with his friends, which concerns Cyrus, but the girls again steer Cyrus clear of TJ. So Cyrus then goes to kind of clear his head and to think, and he goes to his favorite spot, the swing sets, and guess who shows up? Yeah, TJ has actually been coming to the swing sets a lot, hoping to catch Cyrus there without Andy and Buffy, and finally it happened. TJ then starts to explain his side of the story, how he had no idea Reed would have that gun, otherwise he would have never gone, and he would have never invited Cyrus and brought him. So now he thinks Cyrus hates him, and he thinks it's a classic TJ move to ruin anything good that happens in his life. Oh, how cute that he thinks his friendship with Cyrus is so good. Anyways, TJ then tries to leave, but Cyrus stops him and points out that TJ never exactly apologized, and we get this.
You're right. Well, sorry for not saying sorry. So, you've apologized for not apologizing.
So then the two start to get into a little bit of play fighting back and forth, and it leads them to making up and hanging out.
Well, you can be very judgy. Well, you can be intimidating. You know what else you are? What? The only person I can talk to like this.
Now, TJ informs Cyrus that Reed ended up with 100 hours of community service and that the police are investigating Reed's dad for negligent storage of a firearm. Cyrus is then like, well, I didn't tell the police about the gun, probably thinking that maybe TJ thinks he's a snitch and could be mad at him. But TJ says he's actually the one who reported the gun, and he's the one who did the right thing this time. And thus ends the big events of this week's episode. So first, let's talk about Buffy and Kira. Something I don't get is that Buffy keeps saying her team's a hot mess. She's standing on the sidelines coaching this team, and I get that someone needs to coach them, but also shouldn't she be out there playing, kind of demonstrating? Some people learn by showing them, and it makes it feel like Buffy's not even going to end up playing on this team. But, she keeps saying that they need just one good player, and I'm like, Buffy, you are a good player. You obviously helped with the boys' team. You could totally carry this girls' team if you want, but I get that she knows teamwork and she wants multiple good players. So with Kira, I think what this whole situation does is give Buffy a little bit of flashbacks and serves as a look in the mirror to the attitude Buffy had when she was competing with TJ and thought she was the best player and all that way back in the day. We've obviously seen Buffy's attitude change. As far as Kira goes, I don't think that attitude is going to change. I honestly think that the way Kira slyly mentioned how Buffy called the team a hot mess and in front of the team, and the team gives Buffy those dirty looks and all of this, and the way that Kira is like, I don't need an attitude change, that this is going to end up having maybe Kira make her own squad, and then she's going to challenge Buffy's squad to be the one girls team. I don't think that these two will really work together unless, you saw how long it took for Buffy and TJ to work out their differences and finally be comfortable playing with each other. It's probably going to take just as long for Buffy and Kira, so will this girls team even happen after all? Is it going to be a showdown of the girls' teams? That's one thing that I'm kind of predicting, but we will wait and see. As far as Libby, Andy, and Jonah, this situation already kind of sticky, right? What I do like is that they are showing that Jonah and Andy can still be friends after their call it a breakup, not a breakup thing. It shows that, if you don't have a harsh breakup or a horrible end to a relationship, you can be on good terms with someone. You can still be friends, and I think we do need to see more of that when it comes to shows and movies. A lot of times all breakups seem to be so harsh and bad and people can't be friends anymore. but that is not always the case in life. So I do like that they're showing kids at this young age, you can still be friends, have a respectful breakup, then be respectful of each other moving forward. And I also think it was very cute that Jonah came to Andy saying he wanted to introduce her to someone who could be potentially a girlfriend, because that still means Andy's opinion and Andy herself are very important to Jonah. That friendship is very important to her. And because of that, I feel like that's why Andy is so stressed out over Libby wanting to break up with Jonah now. Andy probably feels like she said something and that, she made up Libby's mind for her, but that is not actually the case if Andy really sat down and looked at it. It's kind of like Libby maybe already had this in the back of her mind, but something Andy said maybe pushed her a little bit more, but wasn't intended to be that way. But Libby's her own person. Libby made up her mind about Jonah being boring. But I can see why Andy is now freaking out, because she doesn't probably want to lose that friendship with Jonah now. They're in a very good place. And if Libby goes immediately and breaks up with Jonah after meeting Andy, then Jonah's going to probably blame Andy and be like, what did you tell Libby? Why would you do this to me? You don't want me to be happy, kind of a thing. And that can get very messy. So I can see why Andy is trying to cover her tracks and trying to convince Libby, otherwise. But for Jonah, I feel like he probably had no idea or didn't expect that, Andy and Libby would become such best friends right away, like instant friends with that common connection of doing crafting and all of that. He was just probably like, oh, that's cute. But do you ever want your ex hanging out with your current, love? Do you not? Some people, it works. Others, they usually want to keep them far apart. But I guess we kind of saw that. Jonah pushed Andy and Amber to be friends, which was kind of weird. So he should have maybe be used to this, right? Maybe that's his thing. All his exes become friends with his current girlfriends as they move forward. It's like a little chain. But I kind of do like that they are pointing out in a way that Jonah's kind of boring. Like, I love Asher Angel. I think he is a great kid. I've met him multiple times, interviewed him. He's fantastic. Jonah as a character, he's had such an up and down. Like, I did not like him at first. I thought he was very wooden and boring. And then they started to round him out, make him more three-dimensional, giving him these storylines of, his anxiety and all of that. And then they kind of dropped that a little bit, and he's gone back to just kind of being the cute kid who looks lost with his puppy dog eyes. So I can get why they would be like, okay, well, he doesn't really know how to communicate or talk to us, because I even think with Andy and Jonah's relationship, we didn't see them much of talking about anything or having shared common interests. It was just kind of like they liked each other, maybe physically and all of that, and it's your first crush, you don't really know what to do. You kind of need those common interests. And even seeing Jonah, we don't know how long Jonah and Libby have been talking or so-called dating, but he still prefers to, just communicate over text. That's what he tells Andy. He's like, oh, we just talk over text. That's what you can do too. But in just the very second that we see Andy and Libby together, you can see Andy already putting in the effort to understand what Libby is signing and saying and picking up on all the things and actually learning. We didn't see that with Jonah. He still seems to be like, just texting her. And you'd think if he really, really liked her and this was going to be something, he'd make the effort to learn how to communicate with Libby, how she communicates. I mean, that might be a little bit more mature than what the show is going for, but I feel like it's a sign that maybe, Jonah isn't fully ready for relationships. I think this kid needs to just take a step back and just, be friends, with everybody and not worry about a relationship just yet. So with the gun safety issue, I thought that the last episode did a great job in handling the situation, building up that tension, making it seem like it is such a, very important thing we need to learn about. This episode, though, I kind of feel like could have done more. They dropped the ball, they sugarcoat, I don't know, they just didn't make it seem as pressing of a matter. Honestly, if you're gonna do a big kind of issue like this, I feel like maybe it should have just had its own devoted episode and not had it get lost in an episode that has three other storylines going on and then splitting it into two. I feel like it was all of this build up about how bad this whole gun situation was, and then it was just kind of like, let's focus more on TJ and Cyrus's friendship, which I like TJ and Cyrus's friendship. I'm not dissing on that. It was just like the little mention afterwards of like, oh, okay, this is what happened to Reed. It was just a quick mention that if you blinked, you would have been like, oh, did something happen? Like, what happened? Was there any consequences? I feel like if they really wanted to make the impact what they should have done is actually shown what happened to Reed. Showed Reed, like, stuff, not shown Reed, like, you know, having to answer the consequences, whether that is him understanding what he did and the severity of it, or him not understanding, because maybe he doesn't. Some people don't understand the severity of the issues that they put themselves in or that they put others in. And I think seeing either of those sides play out with Reed actually there would have made this storyline more impactful. And I feel like it would have been what they were going for. Instead, I just feel like it ended up with a sugar-coated ending, and I feel like it was overshadowed by TJ and Cyrus's, you know, friendship. Now, TJ and Cyrus's friendship is important, and I love seeing that develop. Now, what's frustrating with the friendship is, what is it exactly? I know I read the comments and whatever, a lot of you feel like this show is queer baiting you. They're like, you have Cyrus come out and then you don't do anything. You have him say he's over Jonah, that was just a crush. He acknowledges that phase of his life and he's moved on. And then you bring in this friend who's a guy and you have them build up this relationship where, you know, they're the only two that can kind of really understand each other in a certain way. And it makes you feel like, okay, could this end up being a romance? Or is it just a friendship? Now, I feel like it is important for the show to show guy-guy friendships. You can just be friends, just like girls and girls can just be friends. And guys and girls can just be friends. Not everything has to be romantic. But I get why fans are itching for a TJ and Cyrus relationship, because it does feel like if you're going to have such a groundbreaking character like Cyrus, you should push the envelope a little bit with something like that. Now, this is Disney Channel. It's a kids show. I can get why they're hesitant, maybe a little of pushing the agenda a little bit at kids. But you've already started to kind of move that needle, so it's like, oh, what do you do? I get the frustration. But it's also like that moment, this moment right here, I'm going to play it right now.
Well, you can be very judgy. Well, you can be intimidating. You know what else you are? What? The only person I can talk to like this.
Yeah, that is like what you get in every, I feel like, rom-com with a couple. You know, they start to like fight over whatever, and then all of a sudden they're just like, oh, no, I like you. You know, it pushes them towards realizing they like each other in that way. And it felt like, you know, when TJ turned around, that he was going to be like, you know, I like you, or something, like he was going to have a moment of whether, you know, revealing his feelings for Cyrus or something else, and instead he was just like, you're the only person I can talk to like this, or something, which is also very important to hear. But you kind of felt like it was going somewhere else, like the edge of your seat if you were rooting for Cyrus. That's the moment I kind of feel like you felt like it was gonna happen, and then it didn't. I just wish we knew what the intentions with TJ and Cyrus were. Obviously, like I said, I'm not trying to say they need to be a romantic relationship. I'm not saying Cyrus needs to have a romantic relationship. I don't think he should be defined by that or by his sexuality, and I get why the show doesn't go there, but I just wish we knew what was happening, you know, like what the intentions with Cyrus as a gay character are. But yeah, so let's just go ahead and finish me rambling by watching the promo for the next episode.
It's been way too long since we hung out.
This says tomorrow night. I have plans tomorrow night.
With who?
Amber's taking me to a party. I'm sure you could come.
All right, so it looks like we get to see a little bit more of the rift in Andy and Buffy's friendship. It seems like maybe hanging out with Amber isn't such a good idea after all. I think maybe we knew that, although we did see little tinges of Amber getting, you know, becoming good, if you will, as a description. But I actually like the storyline because I think as teenagers or even younger or in life now, we all go through that phase of testing out different friend groups, thinking we have to hang out with the cool kids and ditch the childhood friends that are the safe friends that we've always hung out with because they start to seem boring. You know, it seems like we've seen parts of Amber's attitude, like I said, turn her around, but it seems like she still isn't that great of an influence. The other storyline deals with our boys, TJ, Cyrus, and Jonah. So let's take a look.
It's a massacre!
I just remembered I'm supposed to be somewhere.
Are you upset that I'm winning?
Ooh, I think he is upset.
That's because you're here if you want to know.
What is it?
Ask him.
What did you do?
Okay, so what is the history here with TJ and Jonah? Honestly, we haven't really seen the two of them interact that much on the show, if at all. So what could Jonah be referencing that TJ did to him? Was this long before we were introduced to TJ and before Jonah kind of became part of the friend group? We know it took Buffy a while to get over what TJ did to her in the past, so maybe Jonah's also holding on to some kind of grudge about something. It's all kind of interesting. My other frustration, though, with this show at the moment is that we still don't have any answers to our cliffhangers. We're 7 episodes in and not one of them has been answered. Like, we still don't know who TJ looked back for, although in various cast members have talked about deleted scenes and who he looked back at and whatnot, but as an audience, we still have not seen that play out on the show. We also still don't know whose fortune or wish Andy read from the lantern. So if these things were answered and we don't know it, they should tell us, because I feel like with something like that, a big cliffhanger, you gotta kind of give a nod to it if you're gonna give us the answer for it, if that makes sense. Like if Andy read the fortune that Jonah liked another girl, you'd think that she would mention, I kind of knew this was coming and this is his new girlfriend because I read it on his fortune, or something like that. I feel like the show just needs to wrap up a lot of kind of loose ends before we start opening other loose ends to answer later on. But you know what, it's weird. I'm fully invested in this show. I need to know what happens. There's so much drama. Teen life, so dramatic. So is adult life, guys. Get ready for that. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up my recap of this week's episode of Andy Mack. Hit me up down in the comments. Let me know your thoughts on all these storylines. What was your favorite moment? Least favorite moment? What do you want to see happen with these characters as the show progresses? After that, you can click right over here with my interview. I got an interview with Kat McNamara about Shadowhunters and Arrow. You can see me rejoin some of my old coworkers who are now YouTubers, Lily Marston and Jocelyn Davis. We do What's in the Box. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a recap or a random video that I decide to throw up on this channel. I'm Lisa. I just said throw up, and yeah, see you guys later.